Today I will be sharing my way of making Choco Sansrival. For the ingredients, we need 1 teaspoon of cream of tartar, 2.5 tablespoons of Dutch processed cocoa powder, 1 cup of sugar, 1.5 cup of cashews that we will crush using a food processor, and 10 egg whites. So to begin, line your baking pan with parchment paper on the side and at the bottom. And you also need to have 2 extra. I only have 2 pans, so I'm gonna bake everything twice. Now I'm gonna process the cashews using a food processor. And this is what they should look like. Don't crush it too fine. We need a little bit of the cashew bits for texture. Now we're gonna beat the egg whites. Once it is frothy, we can add the cream of tartar. If you don't have cream of tartar, you can use lemon juice or white vinegar, same amount. And then beat it for about a minute. At this point, we can gradually add the sugar. So once the sugar is all in, continue beating until we reach the stiff peak stage. Just like this. So now we will sift in the cocoa powder. And then half of the cashews. Mix using the folding method. Be careful when you mix not to deflate the air from the meringue. At this point, we can add the rest of the cashew nuts. We need to divide this batter in 4 portions so we can have 4 layers. So again, I only have 2 pans. Your oven should be preheated at 160 degrees Celsius. Since I only got 2 round 8-inch cake pans, so I'm gonna bake this 2 first. We're gonna bake this for 40 to 45 minutes, and then we will turn off the heat, let it sit in the oven with the door of the oven closed. Let it stay there for 20 minutes. Meanwhile, we're gonna cover the leftover meringue with a damp towel, and then I'm gonna put this in the fridge. So after baking the meringue for 40 minutes and then letting it rest for 20 minutes in the oven, I'm gonna take it out of the pan. And then we're gonna continue to bake this again at 160 degrees Celsius for another 30 minutes. That will make this meringue crispy. So it dries out. So this goes back in the oven for 30 minutes. So while that is baking, I'm gonna move on to my second batch of the meringue. Same process as what we did before. So we're gonna bake this for 40 to 45 minutes. Let it sit in the oven with the oven turned off for 20 minutes. Take the parchment paper out, take it out of the pan, and bake for another 30 minutes. So this is what the meringue wafer looks like. It's very crispy now. It's very crunchy, so it can break quite easily. While the other batch of the meringue is baking, I want to show you the stuff that I got from Banggood.com. Banggood.com is an online company that sells baking items and other stuff. They ship internationally and they are a very reliable company. They're celebrating their 11th year anniversary at the moment. If you purchase some items, you might get 20 or up to 50% off on selected items. Now for the icing, we need 1 cup of sugar, 150 grams of dark baking chocolate, 5 egg yolks, 1 cup of water, 1 cup of butter. So to begin, we're gonna combine the water and the sugar. Just gonna let this boil until it reaches 223 degrees Fahrenheit or until thread stage using medium to low heat. So I'm using my thermometer just to be sure. I also melted the chocolate. So once it reached to 223 degrees Fahrenheit, we're gonna transfer this immediately into the egg yolks that is continuously mixing. So add your piping hot sugar syrup. And let it continue beating until it comes to room temperature. At this point, we can add in the chocolate. Slightly warm is fine. So we're gonna continue beating this now. We need to continue beating this and make sure that the mixture is has cooled down, so the butter will not melt. Your butter should be at room temperature. Continue mixing. At this point, we will gradually add the butter. At this point, I added all the butter. I just want to stop here to show you the texture at the moment. It's still a little bit liquidy, but I'm gonna continue mixing this until the icing thickens up and it is more spreadable. It will happen very quickly, so keep an eye on it. At this point, the icing is ready. So I've got the 4 wafers in here. This is the cake ring that I got from banggood.com. I'm gonna put in the description box the link on where you could purchase this. So I'm just adding icing on top of the meringue wafer and then spreading the icing. I also got my piping bag from banggood.com. Now the second layer. Then another layer of cream. So continue doing this until you finish with 4 layers. With the last layer of the meringue wafer, you're gonna put it upside down so the flat side will be on top. So now put icing on the side and on top of the meringue wafer. Doesn't need to be perfect because we're gonna cover this with cashews. For the cashew, I added about, this is about half a cup of cashews crushed. If you wanna pipe icing, I suggest doubling the amount of the icing. and also on the top. I have a little bit of gap here that I failed to cover, but when I finish, I'm gonna go back to fill the gaps with cashews. So now I'm gonna put chocolate sprinkle on top. This Choco Sansrival needs to be prepared a day ahead so it's easier to slice, because at the moment this is crunchy, but the next day it will be crunchy and chewy. And this is the finished product. I hope you give this a try. And just to show you what it looks like when you cut the cake, I forgot to press the record button on the first slice, so I'm doing the second slice. Again, if you want to make this, you should make this the day before you need it, so the cake needs a time to settle the texture and the icing. When I cut this cake, I haven't put this in the fridge, so it's freshly baked. So imagine how good it is if it stays in the fridge for a day. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you give this a try. It's quite fiddly to make, but the result is worth it. Thank you again, and see you next week. Bye!